Arthur, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us today.
Joe, thank you very much for having me.
You bet. Good to have you here. And you're a former educator, director of a school. You also ran for Congress at one point.
I did. I think I was on your program after having run for Congress last year and writing a book, an unlikely candidate, about that.
That's right. Yeah. Good to have you back. And, well, this is an interesting take on education. We often hear kids aren't learning anything these days. They don't know how to read or write. They don't know history. But you say there are some other very critical uh, qualities or character issues that aren't being taught in our schools.
I think that one of the problems is that teachers are programmed to operate in a certain fashion. It's almost as if they're robotic, and especially when you talk to older people about who were the teachers that really inspired them and from whom they learned a lot. And these were people who were individuals. These were people who were very knowledgeable in their subject area. These were teachers who were willing to experiment, try new ways in order to get the information across. And that's more and more difficult for teachers now. I think that it's a very top-down operation. Federal or state officials tell local school boards what's expected of them. The school boards tell the school administrations what's expected of them, and they tell the teachers, and the teachers tell the students, and students are like mules who are just, carrying the baggage for everyone else so that their scores look good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the current concern of many over the standardized testing regimen that is now really the norm across the country.
I think you're right, and so much in the way of reform is geared towards trying to have higher test scores. And even if you get that, you're only measuring, a very narrow, component of what's going on in a child's education. Out here in St. Louis right now, we're kind of hepped up about baseball, and you may be aware of Moneyball and things like that. And part of what I think you need to do is to look, outside of the box. And if you were, just measuring a baseball player based on stolen bases, you wouldn't have the whole picture. And if you're measuring a student based on how well he or she can answer true-false questions, I think you're only getting a little snippet of what he or she's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. You touch on the issue of baby boomers and looking back to the 60s when the baby boomers were young, were, of course, influential. But the focus was then on justice, on civil justice, on economic justice, on living in a peaceful world, peaceful among our neighbors. And yet, as those same baby boomers grew older and, well, took over institutions like the education system, that seemed to have been lost, or many of those values seem to have been lost.
Yeah, Joe, I really agree with you. And, I remember being in school in the 60s and being bored out of my skull much of the time, looking around to friends, and they were feeling the same way. And it's like, please, can you get me out of here? Or, can this be a different type of experience? And yet, so many baby boomers have grown up and are asking schools to replicate what they went through when they were in school, and make it very rigid and look for certain shallow components of measuring progress. And as a result, I think that those ideals of having compassion for others and trying to bring about economic, racial equality and so forth, those just seem to get lost. And, if we don't work towards achieving those goals, I think, we fall into a lower common denominator and forget about them.
Well, how could schools better teach those values? Just have classes on compassion, classes on social justice, or what's missing, I guess?
Well, I think schools have frequently had classes on character development or whatever, and I'm always a little skeptical of that because I think you learn character or you learn compassion from the adults who are models for you when you're a child, and it's not something that can be taught. Connect the dots, X, Y, Z. I think instead it has to be somebody who really models that kind of behavior. And someone who really is compassionate, somebody who's creative, somebody who really wants to be innovative is not the kind of person who wants to sit through a lot of education classes in college. And so I think that those people who can provide the most for students, whether it's character, compassion, whatever we want, many of them just they're not attracted to teaching, not to mention the fact that it's in comparison to other occupations in other countries, it's low paying.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right about what schools value and what the world needs here in one chapter where you ask the question, did our schools turn baby boomers into conservatives? And what schools value: test scores, grades, school spirit, homecoming and prom, college admissions, aggregate scholarship money. What the world needs: learning to live together harmoniously in a multicultural world, providing economic opportunities for all citizens, honesty, developing creative thinking, and problem-solving skills. And yeah, those seem to be more progressive values when you list what the world needs. And yet, what schools really are teaching to a great degree are much different.
Yeah, I do believe that, and I think that you know what's most important to a school. You know, if you have a student council and they're spending an inordinate amount of time talking about homecoming or about the prom rather than service projects or maybe in-school tutoring or working with students in younger grades within the district, you know, I think you've got a problem when the focus is on that which is, you know, really relatively shallow and kind of here today and gone tomorrow. I mean, you know, the prom comes and goes. A student in your school who's struggling and could use tutoring, that's going to be with him or her for a long, long time unless there's intervention. And I just think, you know, the leaders of schools like to try and bring the student body together, and they get them to follow, for the most part, to follow things like prom and homecoming. It's almost like they're anesthetizing the students instead of dealing with the issues which are much more difficult to understand.
All right, we need to take a quick break. Back with more, though. Arthur Lieber's my guest. A standardized education, moving America to the right.